Hello, I'm John Williams, owner of StudySpot Educational Services. Today's video I would like to talk about StudySpot Philosophy, where it came from and why we approach academic coaching the way we do. How our approach to developing academic expertise is very similar to the approach to, say, developing athletic expertise. It's one of the reasons why we originally referred to this as academic coaching. There are a lot of parallels to becoming adept and an expert within the athletic field, regardless of the sport, as well as becoming an effective and efficient student. And so I'd just like to talk about that here today. So if we're going to talk about becoming an athlete, an expert, and let's use the sport just for example, a soccer player. And we could use any sport. We could also use the arts and many other different fields where this kind of model will hold true. But for today's example, we'll use soccer player. And so to become a better soccer player, become a proficient soccer player, there are going to be three components required. So I'm going to use this Venn diagram here, and I'll put soccer player. It's a combination of these three areas: natural ability, effort and attitude, and skills. So the first component, natural ability, is kind of what you're born with. And if we're talking about sports, we're talking about things like big, strong, fast, coordinated, aggressive, willingness to take a risk. It's kind of what you're born with, how we're wired. We might classify all these characteristics together and call it athleticism. Right. How good an athlete you are. And of course, how strong an athlete, how these natural abilities are going to have an impact as to the kind of soccer player you are. The second component is effort and attitude. And again, obviously, if you have a good attitude and you try really hard, you're probably going to do better at soccer than if you don't. But of course, these are broad categories and they're made up of many different things. Maybe things like confidence, interest, how interested you are to become a good soccer player, motivation, maturity. All of these are going to go into what kind of attitude the player has, and therefore how much effort. And obviously these things are related. If you've got lots of natural ability and you're a pretty good soccer player, you probably enjoy it. It makes you feel good. You're confident. And so you play more. And the more you play, the better you get. And the better you get, the more you're interested. And it has that positive spiral. Likewise, if you are you don't have a lot of natural ability in that area and you're not a very good soccer player, well, you probably aren't very confident and not that interested and not lack motivation, so you don't play and you don't get any better, and it has a negative spiral. So these are obviously connected together. The third component that goes into becoming a good soccer player is skills, right? And well, what are skills? Well, these skills would be referred to as not the things we're necessarily born with. These things would be called acquired knowledge. It's what we learn. So if we're talking again about soccer player, it's how to dribble the ball, how to kick the ball, how to play the ball off your chest or use a header, how to play position, how to defend, how to tackle. If you're a goalie, right? How do you play your position and handle the ball and catch the ball properly? All these things you're not born knowing how to do, but you learn them. And the more you do them, the better you can get at it. And so these are the components that will go into becoming, or just figuring out how good a soccer player this player is going to become. And if this player wanted to become a better soccer player, they wanted to improve, and they sought the help of a third party or a coach, well, where would it make the most sense to help this player? Well, here, natural ability, there's not a lot that a coach can do to increase the capability of the natural ability of the student. You're as fast as you're going to be, you're as tall as you're going to be, in those skills, those areas. Not a lot we can do. Effort and attitude, can a coach make a difference here? Well, perhaps, though it is difficult to motivate another person into action. Really, we only have two different ways we can motivate. One is the carrot, right? And one is the stick. Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. And again, that can have some short-term benefit to motivating someone to do what they should be doing or need to do. But in the long run, these things they have to be intrinsic. They have to believe it themselves. And you can't make someone confident. You can't make someone interested, or you can't make them motivated. You can't make them more mature, grow up, So it's very difficult for us to have a direct effect on an individual to improve this area. However, here, skills, under the acquired knowledge, it makes a lot of sense for a coach. This is where a coach can teach skills, show them how to technique, guide their practice so they can develop these skills that are becoming more and more important. And we can also reflect. We can give feedback. Students kicking the ball, or you're not stepping close enough to the ball, so that that student can self-correct and then continue to improve themselves. It makes a lot of sense for a coach to intervene here. And actually, when we do intervene here, and we can improve skills, we can improve that soccer player's performance. And if we can improve that soccer player's performance, now we could have that effect on the student's confidence, or the soccer player's confidence, their interest, their motivation to play. And so indirectly, we can have a real effect on that, on this component here as well. So when I would talk to students, and I talk to students about this model, about how we get to be a better soccer player or whatever sport we're talking about, it makes a lot of sense because they've experienced it, and it's something that they've seen before and experienced. However, when I talk about this model still exists the same, but for students, sometimes they're sometimes surprised by that. So let's go through that. So when we're talking about academics, what kind of student you're going to become. So now we're talking about being a student. Well, we still have the three components. The first is natural ability. Now, we're not talking about big, strong, fast, coordinated anymore. Now we're talking about things like memory, short-term memory, long-term memory, our ability to process information quickly and effectively, our ability to sit still and stay focused, our executive functioning, our ability to manage ourselves effectively, and and control our behavior. All of these things here are how we're wired. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and we would refer to these things maybe as not as intellect, or maybe how smart we are. And based on our strengths and weaknesses within our own natural profile, it's going to have effect as how successful a student we are. Also, again, effort and attitude are going to have an impact as how successful we are. Obviously, if the same again it applies here. So how confident we are, how interested, how motivated we are, how mature we are with regards to our approach to school. And when I would talk to students about why they may not be doing as well as they could be doing, this is where most students would point their attention to. Well, some here, but not so much. Most students believe that they are smart enough, but here's the reason why: I'm just not very good at English, or I hate science. I don't want to do science. I don't see the purpose of it, or for whatever. Oh, you know what? Marks don't really matter now. In grade 12, I'll really start to try hard, and then I'll be motivated to do well. And they really they have excuses. They believe that the reason for their underachievement has to do with either their effort, their attitude, or what they were given. What students fail to realize is the importance of skills, right? And even trying to help students identify what the skills are can be a challenge. So again, if we're talking about skills regarding students, well, what are we speaking about? We're talking about acquired knowledge, things that we're not necessarily born knowing how to do, but can improve, and those things that become more important as time goes on. So we're talking about things like organization, time management, reading comprehension. Not knowing how to read, but being able to identify what's important and what's not important in a passage or a textbook that we're reading. Then take that important information and pull it out and create notes that are going to help us study and prepare for tests and exams. How to study for tests and exams. Test and exam preparation. Moving away from just reading and rereading passive approach to more active approaches to learning so that we can stick. And getting our thoughts onto paper in the form of writing. Taking what's in our head and getting it onto paper in a clear and concise way so someone can understand and evaluate what it is we're thinking. These are skills. And obviously, if we can work with a student to develop these skills, we can improve their performance. And hopefully, ideally, start to have a positive effect on their motivation and their interest and their confidence with regards to schools. So I've talked about the relationship between natural ability and effort. I've talked about the relationship between skills, developing skills, and the impact on effort and attitude. Well, what about the relationship between natural ability and skills? If we look at this diagram here, we have natural ability and we have skills. And let's go back to our sports analogy, our soccer reference. If you can remember way back in early elementary school and you had recess and the bell would go and the kids would go outside to play and someone would pick up a soccer ball and they'd all go to the field to play. Well, there was always those 3 or 4 students who were just better than everybody else. And not only were they better soccer players than everybody else, they were better at baseball, they were better at dodgeball, they were better at track, they were better at football, whatever the sport was. Because if you're a really fast runner, you're pretty much good at all sports. In fact, if you're bigger and stronger than all the other kids, then you probably have the ball. It doesn't really matter what kind of ball it is. Natural ability, when you first start playing sports, when you're young, is almost all about natural ability. Very little has to do with skills. You haven't been training, practicing at that early age. Of course, if we fast forward to, say, a professional or Olympic athlete, here's where we are. Now it's not about how fast you were when you were a runner when you were younger or how big you are. What's going to determine your success is going to be your skills, your practice, those 10,000 hours that you've invested, how you've developed as an athlete or as a particular, in this case, a soccer player. The longer you play sports, as time goes on, the more important skill development becomes, the more important practice becomes, right? When you first play, you just play. But then as you go up and as you go through the ranks, you find yourself training more and more and practicing more and more. And that becomes the differentiating factor you as an athlete, is this development of skills. This is true, holds true as well. It holds true for our academic model as well. In early elementary school, if you've got lots of natural ability, if you've got a good memory, if you can process information really well, if you can sit still and listen, if you are able to communicate your ideas clearly and concisely, if you can get pen to paper effectively, you're going to do very well in elementary school. Right? But again, we fast forward here over to university, in higher education. Success from here doesn't come from those, how old I was when I first learned to read or how much I can memorize. That's not where success is going to come. Success is going to come from the skills we talked about. Your ability to organize and manage your time effectively. Your ability to handle copious amounts of reading and take that information and distill it down to just the main ideas and put those into the form of notes that you're going to be able to study from and help you understand and prepare for big, large tests and examinations. You're going to have to be able to write long essays and express yourself through writing in communication in a way that's going to be effective. So university learning is all about skills, very little about natural ability. Well, here's high school. It's kind of in the middle. Right? What we're learning, what students are experiencing in high school, is it is becoming less and less important how smart they are. It's becoming more and more important how good, effective a student they are. Marks are no longer going to the students who just have lots of natural ability, bright, if you will. Naturally, they have those kind of natural gifts. Marks are starting to go to the students who invest the time and effort in effective ways. And this can be very frustrating. Many of the students that we work with are victims of their own strengths. They have lots of natural ability. They've done really well in elementary school. But now they find as they're going along into high school and heading towards post-secondary that their marks aren't reflective of what they're capable of anymore. And they don't know why. Right? And for these students, they need to develop these skills that they haven't been developing over time, so that, because that's where the marks go. The marks go to the students who study. The marks go to the students who have effective skills. And so this is what we're trying to do as coaches, is guide them through this process where we want to sort of transition them from passive learning habits that just rely on their natural abilities to more active learning habits that are grounded in good skills and good strategies. When I go through this process, talk to students, it makes a lot of sense to them because it fits with what their experiences are and what the students that we work with are. I hope this is helpful. Hopes to give you a nice guideline and overview of why you approach academic coaching the way we do, why we focus our attention on skills, and how with the students we work with in this middle high school period, how important it is that we focus our attention on this, not just the reteaching of content, but the development of core skills. Hope you've enjoyed this, our talk. Thank you.